Okay, so yeah, clustering even with AI, well, it's not as easy as it could be. So here are the different things that I would like to show you today. So first of all, very briefly, a quick definition of what is clustering and why it's so important. And then we dive right into why clustering fails. And it can fail because we do it the wrong way. So it fails even without AI, and it fails with AI too. And we're going to see why. Obviously, if we are doing this kind of webinar, well, there is a right way to do it with AI. And I'm going to share practical techniques to mitigate and to avoid falling into the trap. And finally, the most exciting part, I show you 4 different use cases where you could use AI in a way that is going to bring deeper insight. Because if you use AI just like that, it's going to do something that I call shallow clustering. But with the last part, I'm going to show you how you can use it for deep power clustering. All right. Are you ready? Yeah. Can I see the thumbs up? Okay, I'm going to launch the rocket now. Okay, so uh, clustering. Uh, let's start with the basics. It's going to be short, don't worry. So clustering means grouping similar ideas together. All right, so that's the most basic definition that I can find. So it's a way to go from a chaotic list of ideas to an ordered list of ideas, right? But in fact, that's not the only reason why, as a facilitator, you're doing a clustering activity.
Alex, just a quick interruption, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
There have been a few people saying that you haven't already pinned your screen, so it makes it difficult to read the text.
That's
Those
an
who know have
excellent.
pinned you, but you
Yeah,
haven't pinned yourself.
yeah, that's a really, really good. Not a question, but yeah, it should be better now. Yeah, can you confirm it's better? Anyway, um, so yeah, um, clustering isn't just about grouping. One of the There are two very important intangible goals for clustering. The first thing is about sense making, making sense of what's there. So a great clustering is going to help you reveal patterns. A poor clustering is going to reveal nothing. You're going to have group of ideas, but you won't get any new insights out of that. All right. So doing a great clustering should show you connections that you might not have seen before. The second part, and super important, ownership. In a clustering activity, everyone engages with all the ideas, not just my own idea. And the participants are going to discuss why certain ideas belong together, and they're going to explain their reasoning and listen to the others. And ultimately, hopefully at least, they're going to agree on the groups of ideas and they're going to agree on the labels. And it's a kind of collective dialogue that's going to help align because at first they have diverse perspective on the matter, and thanks to cluster, it's going to help align their diverse perspectives. And that way, it's going to be more likely that at the end, the group is going to achieve consensus. So sense making and ownership are probably the two most important things that you're trying to reach when doing a clustering activity. And then, but I won't dive into that today. You can use clustering for other things like diversity, because it can show you that you are missing parts of the idea set and you can fill in the gaps with new ideas. And also creativity. It can spark new ideas. If you combine two groups, surprising groups together, you can spark new ideas. But I won't get into these two things today. It's more maybe when we're going to speak about ideation and creativity and divergent thinking. But that's all for what is cluster. And I'd like to move on now to why clustering often fails. And right now, no AI is involved, okay? So many times, and I put myself in that category, when we cluster ideas, it's a bit random. I mean, often, especially for junior facilitator, the instruction is something like, okay, so now we have hundreds of ideas. Let's put similar ideas together. Okay, who want to start? And then you have a big blank in the room. And maybe you say, okay, let's start with this one. And you put the first idea on the board. And which idea is similar to this one? But I mean, define similar. Similar in what way? All right, similar doesn't mean anything. And that's the number one reason clustering fails, or at least you don't have a great clustering, you have a weak clustering. It's because you have a lack of a clear clustering strategy. So I'm going to use that word often, a clustering strategy. It's not. I use this wording, but it's not something I'm the only one to do. In consensus workshop, it's called a cluster principle, for example. But I'm going to call that cluster strategy. So yeah, you don't have a clear clustering strategy, and it hasn't been expressed to the participant. It hasn't been defined, or maybe it's a poor clustering strategy that you have because it is not tied to your workshop focus question. So let me explain now. So first of all, clustering strategy. A clustering strategy is it's very simple. It's a rule for grouping ideas. It's like having a guide that keeps everyone focused. Okay, so instead of saying, okay, now let's regroup the ideas, if they are similar, you say maybe, okay, group the ideas that are similar root causes or similar goals or similar link to initiatives that we've done. Okay, so you define the type of similarity that you want to achieve with the grouping. And just by expressing and make it formal that the criteria for grouping is ta-ta-ta, everything is going to be simpler for the participants. All right, so having a strategy is key because it's going to keep the group aligned and you're going to have consistency with all your different types of grouping. Otherwise, you're going to have a group. Let me give you an example. I have lots of books behind me, and you have many ways of clustering these books. I can cluster them by the main topic. I can cluster them by author. I can cluster them. What I did here is that I clustered them by the size. So they go from biggest to smallest, like that. All right? So imagine you have 10 participants clustering my books, and I don't tell them how to cluster them. Well, I'm going to have some part of my books that are going to be clustered by authors, other by themes, other by dates, other by color of the cover, and I'm not going to have consistent clustering. Well, this is exactly what you're going to get if you don't have these clear clustering strategies expressed, formulated, and clarified to the participants. Oh yeah, first thing, but it's not enough. It's not enough because even if you have a clustering strategy, you need to have a good strategy, okay? And one way to make sure that your strategy is really good is that it should be tied to your focus question. So the focus question or the main challenge or the overarching challenge or the how might we question, whatever you call it, it's the big question that is driving your entire workshop. So it's going to define the problem you're going to try to solve or explore. So for example, what's blocking our change? Why can't we change? How can we better engage our customers? How can we attract new talents in our old and boring company? That might be the focus question. And in your prep phase, not only you define your focus question, but you have to know beforehand your clustering strategy, and you should tie the clustering strategy to this focus question. So that it's not about grouping by similarity, it's not about finding one criteria just like that. It's finding a criteria that makes sense in the context of your focus question. So for example, if your focus is how to attract a new talent, one cluster strategy that's going to be very powerful could be the inner motivation of the talents to join your company. Okay, and when you're going to cluster, you're going to tell the participant, okay, now we want to regroup the ideas that are similar in terms of inner motivation that they trigger in the young talents' minds. So this is how you should do it. So you should have a cluster strategy, and this cluster strategy, if you want it to be powerful, should be tied to the core goal of your focus question. All right? If you don't do that, if you don't define your strategy, if you don't clarify your strategy, or if you don't tie it to your focus question, you're gonna do what I call shallow clustering. Okay, so shallow clustering. Typically, what people do is that they cluster by words or semantic similarities. Okay. The other thing I've already told you is that you could have random, inconsistent strategies. You could start clustering in my book by size and end at the end of the workshop, cluster them by book cover, color cover. So yeah, these are the danger of not defining, not clarifying, and not working on having a great strategy. As an aside, you can define it before in your prep, in your design. If you have a lot of time, you could also work it with the participants. And to end with this idea of a shallow clustering and the difference with the power clustering, let me take an example. So imagine that you are in a marketing workshop, and the focus question is, how can we drive more customer engagement? Typically, what most people are going to do is group the ideas by channels. Like, oh, this is the idea for action on LinkedIn, and this is the idea for email campaigns, for in-person events, remote events, and stuff like that. But this is the most boring way of clustering ideas. And you are not going to get answers to the question, which is how can we drive customer engagement? The answer is not do something on LinkedIn. So instead, one power clustering strategy, there might be others, but one power clustering strategy that is aligned with the focus question is group by customer motivation. So this is, these are all the ideas that trigger the sense of exclusivity. These are all the ideas that triggers the sense of convenience. Another axis that you could decide on is maybe and I see, Stefan, your question. It depends on of course, a good clustering strategy is not in theory. It depends on the context, on what you're trying to achieve. But usually the bi-channel is not the best strategy. Another strategy that you could have is by pain points. I mean, these are all the ideas that would answer slow response time, or that would answer confusing messaging or whatever. Okay. So again, there is no strict rule, but the key message is here: take time to think about your cluster strategy, diverge different strategies, and select the one that you think is going to lead to the most powerful conversation with your participants in the end. Okay. That's the number one criteria. You're going to see that you have a good clustering strategy because the conversation you have in the room during the clustering are conversations that are not technical, but conversations that are in deep relation with the topic of your focus question. All right. That's all for, what time is it? 23? Yeah, I'm good. I'm perfectly good. I am 2 minutes early. Is not the clustering criteria linked to the question that generated the ideas? There is a link, but usually it's not exactly the same question. If you generate ideas on how to attract new talent, the clustering strategy could be the inner, the deep motivation to join the company. You're going to see some examples later because I did some prep. All right, so now let's forget about human clustering. Let's talk about why we are here today, AI clustering. And why does it fail? And the guy who is telling you that AI clustering fail is a guy that implemented an AI clustering feature in his own software. I like to speak of me at the third person. One of the first thing I did when we had this AI revolution is implement AI clustering in Storms. So what I'm going to tell you, I know from the behind the scene, I know exactly how AI clustering is implemented in Storms, but it's exactly the same in Mural, Miro, and all the other facilitation software. All right. When I heard about, in fact, I've been looking at AI for clustering since 2015 because I was specialized in large group brainstorming with hundreds of participants, thousands of ideas. So I knew that AI could do something, but the technology was not, it was not possible to do that, at least not live. And even not live, it was able to do 50% of the work, and then you have to do it manually. So I was very excited when I saw what GPT-2 was able to do, because it's fast. It can handle massive amounts of data, so it's scalable, and it doesn't play favorites. Unlike humans, we might be biased towards certain ideas. Well, when I say that, it's a different set of bias. So it's biased but differently from the human bias. So it's different. So let's make several reality checks. The first one is about speed. AI nails speed, of course. The last time I used it with a large group, it was not so large. I had about 100 ideas, and I think it did it in less than 20 or 30 seconds. So just enough time to crack a joke with the group, And I can tell you, everybody was impressed. The participants were impressed by the quality of the clustering. The clients were impressed by the quality of the clustering, but I was not. Anyway, let's make a quick demo and see how much time it takes. Mike, would you like to look at your swatch? And we're going to make a test. So here I have 135 ideas generated by AI, of course. It's a fake set, but nevertheless, I'm going to select everything. Well, no, I don't need to do that. And I'm going to do, Mike, are you ready to tell us how much time it takes? So 135 ideas, 3, 2, 1, go. So right now it's thinking. Well, it's absolutely not thinking. It's creating something that is called embeddings. And now it's creating the clusters. Voilà.
12 seconds.
It's not finished. And now it's creating the labels for the clusters.
Ah.
And yeah, we are done.
Okay, 35 seconds.
35 seconds. All right. And you see we have flexibility, global synergy, immersive innovation, mentorship nexus, empowered journeys, and stuff like that. So we are good. Problem solved. No more clustering problems. We are done. Now something that was taking 2 hours, now it's taking 30 seconds. How much time did you say? How many minutes?
35.
35 seconds. Well, let's make the second reality check. Do you remember what was the second, I think, the second intangible goal for clustering? It was ownership. Well, we just did the clustering. Do we own the ideas? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because clustering, remember, isn't just about organizing the ideas. It's about understanding them. It's about owning them. And when AI takes over, well, the participants lose that connection. So how can they feel invested in all these ideas, 135 ideas, and maybe they have created 3 of them, if they didn't organize themselves? They can't. It's just impossible. So by definition, AI clustering cannot solve on its own the problem of clustering ideas, because there will never be ownership of the ideas. All right, that's even worse. Even if we don't need this ownership, there's a third reality check. Meaning. So as I said, I've shown it on Storms, but it would have been the same on Miro or Mural. As I said, we use the same kind of algorithms. So we're going to cluster the ideas quickly. But there is one big problem, is that the AI clusters are based on patterns that are based on semantic similarity. Okay, you need to remember that word. Semantic similarity. All right? And semantic similarity, well, it's similar meaning, but what do we mean by meaning? You know, it's exactly the same as saying, let's regroup ideas that are similar. We don't know what's the strategy behind this similarity. All right? It's matching the words on a supposed similarity, but we don't know exactly what. And before I move on, this is where I need to put my hat, my technical hat, and explain you. I'm going to explain to you the technology behind AI clustering by similarity. All right? So it's going to be a little bit technical, but not too much. So to understand why I say that it's a weak similarity, we need to understand the AI clustering algorithms that are used by Miro, Mural, and Storms. All right? So the first thing is that it's doing something that is called embeddings. So embeddings are kind of numerical representation of ideas. In fact, it's vectors, multi-dimensional vectors. But if you're not into math, just remember it's big numbers that incorporate the meaning of an idea. They are numerical representation of the ideas. They capture the essence of words and their context. Okay, and this is artificial intelligence that is able to understand the words and the relationship between the other words in the sentence of the idea, and they transform that into a big vector, a big number. Okay, so I'm going to show you. You see here, I'm going to show you on my screen how exactly it is working. So it's going to create a map. And here I'm going to show you a 2D map, 2D dimensions. But imagine, in fact, that AI is living in a world with thousands, hundreds of thousands of dimensions in their maps. But to make it easier for us poor human, I'm going to do it in 2 dimensions. So it's going to create an embedding for each one of the idea. Okay, so it's going to create one embedding, one big number for each one of these ideas. And by using these ideas, it's able to place them on a map, like a map with cities. Okay, and it's going to put related ideas like 24/7 support. It's going to be on the map very close together to something like live chat, because these ideas are very similar, semantically similar. And then loosely related ideas like customer feedback or customer loyalty are going to be on the same map, but a little bit further. And also, it's going to deal with making customer loyalty at the right distance from customer feedback. All right? And then you have the unrelated ideas like automate payroll or improve product design. Maybe this one is a little bit closer to customer feedback. Okay, so thanks to the embedding, it is able to position all the ideas on a big map. So that's the first part. Then it's doing something that each one it compares two ideas. It's able to calculate what is called the distance between two ideas. Okay, so it's able to calculate a distance between 24 support and customer feedback. It's able to calculate a distance between 24 support and automate payrolls. All right. And when it's measuring the distance, it's doing it for all of the ideas. Then it's using another algorithm, and this one, by the way, the distance and the next and the way to cluster are not artificial intelligence. This is basic math. So this is calculating the distance for the people who are a little bit into math. It's using something that is called cosine similarity, for example. And then it's doing another algorithm that is pure math also, that is clustering. So you have different clustering algorithms, but basically the idea is that, I'm gonna remove that. Should work. Yeah. It's gonna have an iterative algorithm that's gonna say, okay, do I have a cluster like that? Or maybe my cluster is like that, or maybe my cluster is like that. And it's going to make some decision. It's not the right word, but it's going to decide on what are the different clusters. And maybe that is going to do something like that. And this one is going to be alone in its cluster. And this one is going to be alone too. So at the end, you're going to get these 4 clusters. Or maybe it's another algorithm that's going to act a little bit differently, and it's going to put all these ideas into one cluster. So you see, it's going to be into 3 steps. I think I have a recap here. Yeah. So it's called, for each one of the idea, each time an idea is created, or just before the clustering, just before you click on cluster, it's going to create one embedding for each one of the ideas. So in our example with Storms, 136 ideas, it created 136 embeddings. It positioned them on a map. It is able to calculate distance between each pair of ideas. And then it's using another algorithm. Again, it's not AI. It's using another algorithm to cluster and to decide on which ideas are together. Make sense? So this is semantic clustering by similarity. Okay, so now if we get back to our third reality check, here's the issue. The embeddings are great for capturing semantic similarities, but they do that as a black box. You see the clusters, but you don't really know why the ideas were grouped together. AI cannot explain the choices, and you cannot adjust the way the clustering, there is no feature, there is no setting in Storms or in Miro that is to say, modify the embeddings because the aim of my workshop is this and that. Okay, you cannot adjust it based on your workshop need. And which means that there are some big chances that the clustering strategy don't align with your focus question. I mean, AI doesn't know if you're trying to cluster by root cause, solution, or goals. And usually the embeddings are done without any bigger context of the workshop or whatever. It's just the numerical representation of an idea, a set of words and sentences. So it doesn't understand your focus question. It can't align the clusters with a specific strategy you're using. And the result is that the cluster, they look neat like that, and my clients were satisfied and the participants were impressed. But in fact, it's probably weaker than if you could provide yourself the clustering strategy. Voilà, that was my demonstration of why AI fails. So once you know that, you know one thing is that you cannot rely alone on AI clustering by similarity to do your clustering, especially if your workshop is important and if you need consensus in the end, if you need to find really deep meaning to the result of your workshop. I mean, if you're doing something very quick, you ask a question, you have hundreds of ideas that just want a quick debrief, AI could do the trick. But here I'm speaking of a really important brainstorming on a very important issue for your customer. And here, you cannot just use AI clustering by similarity alone. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can use AI cluster by similarity by combining it with other steps. And it's something I had. It's a process it's one of the first process I created when I did my first try with AI. So this, what I'm going to show you now, I've created it more than 10 months ago, maybe 1 year ago, and I had the time to test it and it works, okay? Contrary to what I'm going to show you in the next chapter. So the process that I use is that in fact, the first thing, of course, as I said, is define your clustering strategy. Should align to your focus question. Already said that, I don't need to repeat. So that was before the workshop. I do it before the workshop, and I prepare my instructions before so that it's ultra clear to explain to the participants what is my clustering strategy. But here I'm going to use AI right now in step 2 for the initial clustering. And this might be the only use case where I don't respect the sandwich principle, by the way, because I use AI first. So you're in your workshop, the divergent phase of your brainstorming is done. Stefan says you could ask GenAI to suggest a few different clustering strategy. Well, Stefan, good news. I have a GPT for that, and that's part of the next chapter. Okay, so AI for initial grouping. You have done the divergence, and you let the AI handle the first pass. So you have these tons of ideas, and it's going to group all the ideas on semantic similarities, a little bit like we did here. And just by having all these different clusters, it's much easier to read the content, to understand the content, all right? And let's say, for example, that one of them, I have too many ideas. For example, in this one, I have 15. I can cluster it again so that I have less ideas per clusters. And it's even easier for me to understand what's in each one of these groups. It's also great. I call that the housekeeping part because you can make it very easy to remove duplicates, ideas that are absolutely the same. Okay, so I can merge them or put them aside. We can clarify ideas. We can, if some ideas are not understood, it's the good moment to rephrase the unclear ideas and to add context, etc., etc. So this step is all about gaining clarity. It's the really start of making sense. So you see, sense making is on a spectrum. At the end of a spectrum, you have deep understanding, deep meaning, and unlocked hidden pattern. But the first part is maybe just clarifying what's in it. Okay, so this is what you can do with AI clustering by similarity. And then you go further. Oh, that's housekeeping. I already said that. And then you go further. So this is where the real value is created. Now that you have cleaned up, it's time to recluster. And maybe you're going to break everything that the AI has done. Okay. You need to revisit your focus question. You look at the different clusters. Do they align with my workshop goals? Maybe the AI is going to be right sometimes, and the cluster will be aligned with the focus question, and you keep it. Or maybe it's not, and then you need to create new clusters. You can move, merge, relabel clusters. Everything is flexible, and you really need. The danger is that when the participants see the first clustering, they're going to say, "Oh, it's good enough." Okay, so that's the danger of using AI clustering versus the classical way of starting from scratch. The danger is that you don't want the AI clustering to solidify into the final solution just because it is easier. That's a real danger. We are all lazy, right? Especially me. So everything is flexible. You need to encourage participants to expand, to challenge the initial groupings. You need to explore new angles, new insights that emerge when you reframe the clusters, patterns that were totally missed by the AI. So this is the phase that's going to take time, as with manual clustering. But hopefully, the first step that we had with use the AI for initial grouping, hopefully is going to help you go faster in step 4. You need to go, Clémentine, already? Bye-bye. So that's my process. AI is a great way to get started. It's going to make it faster to go to the important phase of the clustering. And the important phase of the clustering, you don't have shortcuts for that. You have to do it with your participants. Otherwise, They won't own the ideas at the end, right? Any insight on how to make sure that participants don't stop at the step of cool, AI did it for me and it's done? Well, Benjamin, as I said, that's a real danger. You really have to be extra clear. Maybe you could never done that, but maybe you could, once it is clarified, when you have done the housekeeping, the cleanup, remove the duplicates, you know what you could do? You could put all the ideas again into in bulk into an empty cluster, because it's sure you have to weigh the pros and cons because the initial clustering from the AI is going to bias the participants. So it's up to you to see how you deal with that. Personally, I really insist on the fact that this is just a basic AI clustering and we need to find more. And this is where define your clustering strategy is great. Having clear instruction on how to group. Okay, now we group by inner motivation. Let's take a first idea. What's the inner motivation behind? Blah, 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 blah. And by the way, I'm going to show you how to use AI to help with that. And that's the next step. Go further. AI for power clustering. What would happen if you fed AI back on the strengths and weaknesses of its clustering? Well, it won't make a difference with, as I said, the algorithm that is used, Mike, is this embedding and clustering. It's not generative AI, all right? So there is no way to refine with a discussion. It's a one-way operation where it creates the embeddings that are numerical representations, and you cannot control the way it creates these embeddings. And then it does the cosine, it calculates the distance between the two vectors, and then it creates the clustering based on an algorithm that is not AI driven.
So literally, if you said the weaknesses in your clustering are A, B, and C, come up with a different clustering that addresses this, it wouldn't be able to do it.
No, or it would do it. You would have to feed it again with a whole bunch of contact and use GenAI, a whole bunch of ideas, and use GenAI to do the clustering. And this is some of the things I'm going to show you right now, by the way. All right, let's go further. So what's my first? So what I'm going to show you right now is basically very new, proof of concepts more than proven by experience. Okay, I have to make this disclaimer because usually I show things that I have tested in real life, but here it's more innovation and POC than real life tested. All right. So what I'm going to show you 4 power clustering use cases. So it's about AI, not just to do the grouping of ideas, because we've seen that we need the participant to do that. So what are the other ways? You see the creative question, the other angle is, in what other ways can GenAI help us with power clustering? If the clustering needs to be by human hands, in what other ways can GenAI help us to unlock the deeper insights and refine them? Okay, so I have thought of 4 power clustering use cases. One that you can use before. Stefan, this is for you. Finding power clustering strategies, brainstorming power clustering strategies. I'm going to show you a GPT that I created for that. And normally, by the way, it's already in the use case library because I've scheduled it to appear during this webinar. During the workshop, I'm going to show you how we can use AI to uncover deep connections related to the focus question on each idea. And we're going to use terms for that. Yeah, during the workshop, I'm going to show you a GPT that I created to help us naming clusters, but with great labels that follow the rules of deep clustering. And after the workshop, I'm going to show you something huge. Using Airtable on a set of hundreds of ideas, I'm going to show you a strategy that is able to extract deep meaning and do some real clustering much better than what can be done with embeddings. Okay, let's start. First one. What time is it? Yeah, good. I'm good. So it was the idea from Stefan. As I said, it's complicated to find good clustering strategy, and well, we can use AI for that. GenAI can be a powerful brainstorming partner. I don't have my GenAI card. Fuck. That's a diverge use case from the DREAM framework. So how does it work? Well, I'm going to find the prompt because I said normally it has been published already. If I go into the use case library, I sort by most recent. I put a little bit of zoom. Yeah, it's here. So you should be able to see. I'm going to put the link in the chat. I'll put it after. So this is my my GPT brainstorm clustering strategy. It can explain what it is. You can and well, I'm going to show you. So as an input, you put your workshop context and your focus question. Okay. So it has all the important things that an embedding doesn't have. And then as an output, it's going to give you a list of clustering strategies. It's going to give you a reflection question to help you decide. So that's a reflect use case too. And it's even going to formulate the instruction for your participants. So it's very helpful. You have the full prompt. I don't keep anything secret. It's a big prompt, as you can see. And how does it work? So first you give it your workshop context. My workshop is about attracting new talents. And the first thing it does is expand on the focus question. And I do that to enhance the context available for the next step so that it can do a better job. Next, it's going to list example of bad strategies. So cause and effect, keywords, chronological orders, these are bad clustering strategy. And again, I do that for you, the user, but also for the AI, so that it has more context when I'm going to ask for the strategies. And next is going to list the 5 potential strategies. Similar elements of an appealing workplace. That's a good strategy for how to attract talents. Similar motivations for talent to join. That's a really good one. Similar touch points. That's a very bad one. And I told it. And also, yeah, before that, these are the reflection question so that you can make the choice. So you see that it's a GPT that proposes you 5 alternatives, but it's up to you to pick the one. And by the way, strategy 3 was a poor idea. So I told it that it was a bad practice because it is sequential and it is revising, and instead is giving me based on similar obstacle or challenges faced in attracting talent, which is a much better strategy. And then you pick your choice. So I said, I like the second one. And now it's giving me all the instructions that I should give to my participants. So that's one example of how you could use GenAI in the prep phase to brainstorm clustering strategies and select the best one. You could even do it live with your participants, because picking the clustering strategy with the participants, you're going to get an even better ownership of the full activity and a much better understanding of the criteria to cluster the ideas. So that was my first use case. Second use case. So the second use case is using storms. Why storms? Not only because it's my tool, but because you cannot do that with Miro. Voilà. So imagine that your participants are a little bit stuck on some of the ideas. Well, you can use Storm's AI-powered list to suggest the underlying connection behind this idea. So I have a demo for you. Where is it? Is it this one? Yes. So let's say that we are clustering these ideas and we have offer workshops on creating meaningful change through our projects, and we don't see really how we're going to cluster that. Well, I have a list in Storms. So the list in Storms are a way to develop the ideas. And here I'm using it to generate.
Alex, we don't see what you're showing yet.
Yeah. Voilà. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Thank you for. So these are all my, let's say that we are clustering these ideas. And we have this idea of a talent exchange program with partner companies. And we are trying to, we don't know where to cluster them. So with the participants, we're going to use the AI. So if the cluster strategy is underlying motivation for potential candidates to join, it is able to extract the link to inner motivation to join. Maybe it's going to expand their professional network. So I'm a talent. Maybe it's going to help me gain diverse industry experience. So instead of proposing a cluster, it is listing all the inner motivation that are linked to your cluster strategy for this idea. So then you can say, okay, yes, maybe we can regroup it with other ideas that increase job satisfaction through variety. You see? And you do it one by one, only when you need it. Initiate a global art project. In what way should I cluster that? Well, I should cluster that based on inner motivation for potential candidates. And maybe because there is a motivation linked to diverse culture or a motivation linked to creative expression. And maybe there are other ideas with creativity or the need to express creativity, and you're going to cluster them through this angle of developing my own creativity in this company. So you see, it's another example of using AI not to do the clusterization for you, but to help you find the real deep, meaningful connections between the ideas. So again, I haven't tested it. I think it could be really powerful. The only problem is that it's going to take a lot of time if you use this. You really need to use it on a very when you have time and on a very strategic project, or a project where there is big consensus problems or real tension in the room. By doing it that way and using the AI to extract the deep meaning behind the ideas, it's kind of an unbiased participant that does that, so it could help sometimes. Can we access this brilliant Storm somewhere? You mean the specific workshop? I need to extract the template. Otherwise, Storms, you can find it on the web. I'm going to put some links. All right, I need to move on. Yeah, it's a tool. It's my little baby. It's a tool I created a long time ago, and we released a new version last year with AI and new design and stuff like that about .storms.me. Up. Okay. Next. Thank you, Angela. Next, my new toy. For those who know me, you know that I'm quite fond of playing with new tools, but I'm a big fan of Airtable now. I'm putting all my data on Airtable. And here I'm using Airtable, which is basically a smart Excel or a smart database. So it's if you really want the AI to do the heavy lifting, okay? And you could do that live if you have a 15 minutes break. So if you have thousands of ideas and you put your participants in a break for 15 minutes, you could use the AI to find deep connections, not the embedding clustering that we've seen before, but deep connections with what I'm going to show you now. So brace yourself, it's a little bit complicated, but it's super powerful. Okay, so I need to share my screen this time, not forget that. And I'm gonna go into here. So basically, it's like a database or like a worksheet with tables. And the first thing here, you see that I imported the 130 ideas. Okay. So that's the first stage. And I have a table with all my ideas. I hope you can see it okay. Then I have another table where I put my focus question, how to attract new talents. And I put my clustering strategy that I have defined before. So how to attract new talents is my focus question. My clustering strategy is linked on deeper inner motivations. And I give a definition of what is deeper innovation for potential talent to join the company, such as, and I put even some examples. All right. So now that I have that, I come back into my idea table. And you see that for each one of the idea, I have a focus question, the clustering name, the clustering strategy. And here, this column that is called notes, it is using AI, like you've seen with the storms example, it's doing the same thing that on the 100 ideas at the same time. All right? You see, for example, for implement flexible remote work policies, it's creating all these tags that are linked to deep inner motivation, work-life balance, autonomy, reduce commuting stress, increase productivity, personalized work environment, global collaboration, etc. And it does that for each one of the ideas. So you end up with tens and tens and tens of tags, a lot of them. So it's not cluster, right? It's tags. And I have a trick where I transform them in real tags into the application. And then I come back to my other tab. And here, I use another set of AI. So here, I'm using a specific feature from Airtable that is called a roll-up field. And a roll-up field, basically, it's creating a list of all the unique tags that it found in all the columns, in all the rows, in all the ideas. So these are all the unique tags. And again, it's tags, not cluster, because I have too many. And then I am using another AI field, and I'm going to show you the formula. So it's my prompt. We are working on ideas for this focus question, how to attract new talents. We are analyzing these ideas through the angle of inner motivation, and I put the definition here. We have extracted this list from all the ideas, and I put all the tags from all the ideas, but there are too many. Your task is to reduce that list to only, and I can even specify the number of final clusters that I want. 15 clusters of inner motivation, output as a list separated by commas. And now I have my short list of clusters. I have my 15 deep, powerful clusters for all these ideas. And I can have that in a matter of minutes. And it's not finished. Now that I have my 15 clusters, I can go to my step 4. And my step 4 is another AI field, which is going to pick the most relevant tag for this idea. So if you want to see the prompt, we are working on that focus question. Your task is to pick the most relevant tag, inner motivation. Here is the idea. Here is the list of tens and tens of potential tags. Pick and output the most relevant one without any comment. And you see that now I have my selected clusters. I have one cluster for each one. And then I can use, in Airtable, you have views, different views of the same data set. I can use Kanban. Et voila, I have my clustering done for all my ideas. I didn't do it because I didn't want to spend too much AI credits, but I did it for a few ideas to show you how it works. Here we have all the ideas linked to work-life balance, purpose-driven work, innovation, etc. I think it's a superb, ultra robust way of extracting deep, insightful clusters from a set of ideas. As I said, if you master Airtable and if you prepared your stuff before, I think it's doable in less than 15 minutes. Make 30, so you could even do it during a break. Or, of course, you can do it after the workshop for your documentation, your report, and stuff like that. Voila. This is what... Oh, no, I have another one. I forgot. This one is more fun, and it was very easy to do. Power labeling of clusters. So let's say that you have 5 or 6 post-it notes that are grouped together, but you don't have a label yet. You could use, of course, the Miro label maker or the Storms label maker to do it. But again, it's going to do it probably without knowing the clustering strategy. So instead, you could use this GPT, where you say, my focused question is how to attract new talent, and my cluster strategy is deep motivation to join the company. And he answers, great, share the group of Post-it. And I take a photo of a group of Post-it. So here it's a Storms, but it could be real Post-its. And the cool thing is that Vision works on handwritten Post-it notes as soon as you don't have too much. And here you just need label for one group. And then again, it's going to do it. It's not going to do it for you. It's going to propose 3 different labels with an explanation of why it thinks that these labels are good. And it's up to you to pick the one you like. So again, this one is very draft, but I'm going to post it on the platform. This one is not yet on the platform, but I'm going to post it on the platform so that you can play with it and comment and tell me if it works well or if we can refine the prompt together. So in conclusion, my last word, and then we can have a Q&A, is that, as usual, AI isn't just about speed. All right. You can use it for speed at the first step of a clusterization, to do the clarification step. But it's also about going deeper. And if you're creative enough, you can invent the custom GPTs, the way to use your different AI applications like Airtable or Storms or Miro. You have to invent ways that don't replace human because they need to do the clustering by themselves, but you can find ways to help them doing better, going deeper, extracting more insights and stuff like that. Thank you very much for listening to me, for listening to my strange French accent and my crazy ideas. And I'm open for a little bit of chat now.
I have a question, Alex, about the algorithm of distance, which is based on a dimensionality.
Yeah.
Are you able to influence the dimensions it uses in that? Because then you can affect its clustering strategy.
No. Well, except if you're building your own embedding system, but that's terribly complex. 99.999% of people like Storms and Miro and Mural, we are relying on APIs from others or from open source projects. For example, us with Storms, we are using the embedding API from OpenAI, and we are using the latest one, which is embedding each idea on, I don't remember how many dimensions, but the vectors are immense, huge. So no, you cannot influence the way embeddings are done. And that would be very difficult to influence because you have to train, basically you train the system to create these embeddings based on data sets. So you would have to do a different training for each one of your workshop.
Could you using Excel append the tags that were created from another AI exercise to the original content and then group it? Because it would change what the embedding worked on, wouldn't it? Because it's got the additional data of the tags in there.
Yeah. You could re-embed. If you modify the content of the idea by adding the tags inside the idea, you create a different vector, a different sense, a different meaning for sure.
Okay.
And it's a good idea. Yes, it's a very good idea, Mike. So you would have a first set of embeddings that enables you to create clusters. You put the cluster name inside the idea, and it's a bit complicated, but it's yeah. I see the scientist in you, Mike. Yeah, so there are plenty of ways to create embeddings. You have third parties that does that, and then you have third parties that store the embeddings, but that's not for us. I mean, that's not really for consultants.
What I should have
vector
said.
database is not the same thing. A vector database is basically a way to store the embeddings. Of course, it has also some ways to create the embeddings, but it's still the same kind of large language models that are behind that. So
what I should have said before my question, Alex, was thank you for an absolutely amazing, insightful and informative run through clustering and AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody, I'd like to see a little bit of feedback. Alison.
Most of the groups that I work with are very small. It's the board of a charity and there's a dozen people in the room. And so I wondered if you wanted to reflect on not the usefulness of the clustering strategy, but how you might adapt it differently. If you've got a small group of people, you might not use it in the session, but might use it to prepare ahead of time or afterwards. Or maybe there's ways in which that it can be a powerful tool even in a small group. For sure, in a room full of 400 people, the capacity to deal with thousands of ideas and start that initial clustering is deeply appealing. But how would you use it in a very small group?
In a very small group, you still need to define your clustering strategy. It's a way to avoid the weird moment, the starting point where you ask them to put ideas that are similar together, and they say, "Yeah, similar," and there is a kind of block. But if you tell them, "Okay, let's analyze what are the inner motivation behind this idea that we had on how to attract new talent, and let's put all ideas that have the same inner motivation next to this one," you can start straight away, and the people are going to participate straight away. What I think might be different in a small group is that I think that now, I don't do small group often, but I think that now, especially that now that I worked on this webinar, and I've gone deep I did a deep dive on it. I would work the clustering strategy. I would define the clustering strategy with the participants because, again, they're going to get an even better ownership of all the ideas and the process. They're going to be engaged in the activity by themselves. Another thing is that we can pick. I said we shouldn't change the clustering strategy, but one thing that if you have time you could do, if you have a small group of participants and not too many ideas and enough time, you could duplicate all the ideas and try different strategies. Each one is going to give you a different. Maybe you can cluster by inner motivation for once, and then you could cluster by challenge faced by tenants when they join the company today, and stuff like that. And each one of the different clustering strategies is going to give you a different set of insights. That's going to fuel the conversation in different ways. And again, a good clustering is a clustering that creates great discussions in the room. And then these discussions create a dialogue, and then this dialogue creates a consensus. Ouais, Jérôme?
Salut. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The discussion in the room, right? This is exactly a recurring topic, really, because as soon as you end up facilitating by quite heavy weight AI techniques, right? And you expect also the participants to actually understand what you're doing,
yeah,
and to participate and to own their own process within that process, right? I mean, and the discussion about their result or sub-results, you know, what am I doing there? This is what we're doing as teachers. You know, we used to just walk. I just explained to the people, you walk to the wall, and then you go back to sit down, and you look at someone else walking to the wall and put a sticky, you know, put a post-it. And the fact of walking physically in silence and reflect in silence, and it was all actually part of the process.
Yeah, so same, yeah, again, an example of why you cannot rely on AI alone.
Yeah, very good point. So much so that my question would be, if you would use a AI process parallel to the human process in the room, right? Who would own, you know, what? So the results coming from the AI, you know, the wow effect. Oh shit, the AI says that. Well, that's brilliant. Let's take that. You know.
So one way of doing it would be to keep it on the side, just for you. A little bit like I did with the storm example. Only when you are stuck on an idea or on a set of ideas, then you use the AI to unstuck, to unblock, to unlock the conversation. And you know, with the storms feature, you click on the card and then you click on a button and keys. These are the potential inner motivations. And then you can use that to unlock. Or with the Airtable example, you import all the ideas silently, you generate all the tags, and when needed, you can say, oh, we didn't think about this inner motivation, blah, 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 that you got with the AI. And you just put it one at a time, drop by drop to the participants as a way to unlock new perspectives and as a way for them to springboard on it to have new discussions.
Okay, yeah, it's good. I think it's parallel. It's
yeah.
So it needs learning. They have to master the tools, so to speak.
Yeah. Angela, would you like to ask your question out loud? You're on mute.
It's not a question, more a point, just that I love how you can use storms with the the humans, the back and forth. So I'm just saying with, if I'm doing breakout groups, I could have a recorder and the recorder's recording, doing the sticky notes in Storms on behalf of the group. So they're talking amongst themselves and then saying, okay, so we're supposed to, in this big session, we're supposed to come up with 4 ideas. What are they? And have the recorder put them in so that they are having their brainstorming together.
Yeah.
And then the recorder is putting it in like you would on, someone that had a pen, had a flip chart.
Oh yeah, so you would use voice recording and then voice recognition to extract the ideas?
No, I'm saying I'm actually imagining people sitting at a table like we used to do. And instead of having a flip chart in a pen, instead of having a flip chart in a pen, or that the recorder is putting it right into Storms on behalf of the team. So they have their own color, right? So it's like team you're yellow, team you're blue, team you're pink.
When you say recorder,
wait,
like
a human.
Okay, I didn't understand at first. I thought it was a machine. Okay. Well, absolutely. That's the way I've been using Storm since 12 years. I never give one device per participant for in-person workshops.
I did not know that.
Well, we haven't. So Storms for in-person, and by the way, digital tool for in-person, I always put one device for 3 or for 6 participants. And so that Lauren, you know that, right? So that they are not the nose inside their phone, and the idea is that they talk together and the best of the discussion get put into the system, not everything.
Got it. Thank you.
As I said, I've always explored the right use of technology compared to the bad use. And this is a typical example. When you use digital tools for in-person workshops, you never give one device per participant because of a bad dynamic, except for the very few workshops where you need very personal and private input or private voting. Rüdiger, I think you're asking a question.
Hi, Alex. I mean, wonderful again, and very inspiring to listen to all these insights, and my head's kind of smoking. Now, I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the last thing that just came up, because I also had the confusion understanding the last participant, like recording with the recording situation, and it sounded very fascinating to me that actually there is something being transcribed. Have you had experience with transcribed content being put into ideas and then using the clustering technique afterwards? Have you done that before? Is that possible?
I haven't done it, but now it is certainly possible. It's not even difficult. Well, okay. You don't even know how to code to do that right now. If you you have a recorder, then you transcribe the recording. You have so many tools that can do that. NotebookLM, for example, that we are all tinkering with right now. You transcribe it into text. So the only challenge is that you're going to get a huge text, too big for the input window of an LLM. You know the concept of input window. You cannot put more than 4K tokens, I think, inside ChatGPT at once. So, but in fact, there's no problem. You can use Zapier. You take the text. It's going to put it into what it called chunks. And for each one of the chunks, you're going to put it into a prompt using an assistant from OpenAI. And it's going to analyze the prompt. You're going to give it the clustering strategies exactly like I did. No, it's going to first extract the ideas. Sorry, no need. And then each one of the ideas is going to save into an Airtable database. And you do it for the next chunk. And you continue, and you continue, and you continue, and you continue, and you continue. And at the end of the transcript, you have all the ideas that were generated by the participants. So you don't even need a specific software to do that. And the good thing of doing it on your own is that you can specialize the prompts. If you use a recording application and transcribing and meeting application, they're going to extract the ideas using their own prompts that might not be very good or very relevant. Yeah, it's absolutely something I could do on the fly right now if we had 1 hour.
Great. It would take me a lot longer, but thank you.
That could be a good idea for a kind of live Tinker session. Live Tinker challenge. You give me a
Nice.
challenge, I tinker in real time. And if I cannot make it in 60 minutes, I have to send you a bottle of Burgundy wine to each one of you. That's going to cost me a lot of money.
Thanks, Alex.
Anything else? Any question? Any feedback on the session? Honest feedback?
Super helpful, and really appreciate the show and tell method of your workshops, the live examples and the running through, and also it's the first time I've seen the presentation in screen. That was also super helpful to follow. I assume that's a Zoom thing.
It's no. It's I'm using something that is called OBS that enables to do all this kind of shiny stuff. You see, for example, here, I can push whatever I want. I can push you.
That just to say that helps a lot with the focusing on the presentation and following through. So thank you too for making it an easy to follow webinar, particularly because there were technical elements to this one that helped. The show and tell part helped it a lot in making it comprehensible. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. This is this is the reason why I use this kind of techniques. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Anything that if I do it again with some other people, this one, anything I could improve or change? Stop, keep, start.
Maybe just make some of the examples larger, depending on the screen people are working on. It was hard to read the examples that you were then showing, just to make them a bit larger.
The screenshots, the part where I show the applications. Yeah.
I don't know if you just want to zoom in.
Yeah.
Showing the whole thing, but then being able to zoom in so we can read it a little bit better. But I agree, it was some of them that were text heavy were hard to read.
Yeah.
Just one reason I was glad it was being recorded, because I thought I would go through again and pause, try to look.
Also, I want to, the 4 use cases, I want to put them into the use case library with screenshots so that you can really study how it is done. And not only study, test them if you have the tools and propose improvements. This is really the aim of the AI Thinkers Club, is that we tinker together, we test stuff, we feedback, we improve and do stuff like that. Yes, Rudiger?
Yeah, one thing I had difficulty with in the beginning was to wrap my head around the deeper connections between ideas. It would be helpful for me, I guess, if I had a few more examples of what kind of ideas could be generated. Your example was great, but I think it could be useful to have more of these brainstorming outputs that are possible to get a sense of what deeper connections there can be.
Yeah,
maybe that's something I was kind of missing.
Maybe when the first time I speak about the cluster strategy, by the way, I think it was Stefan who told me that we could use an AI to brainstorm this cluster strategy. So when I explain them, maybe it's at that time that I could show the GPT and make some examples with it, so that not only it will show how you could use AI, but also it will show other examples of deep clustering strategies. So it could hit two birds with one stone. Is that how you say that in English? Yeah. Because in French it's different. Talia, désolé, sorry, you feed two birds.
It's you eat two pieces of cheese at the same time. That's the French version, I know. No, and yeah, I mean, if you do that on the screen again, you might run into that problem of we can't read it very well because of the size of things. Just looking up for that, and then I do have not a lot of experience with clustering strategies, so I was looking for what is another example and what does it really mean, and do I really understand what it is? And I was thinking about like the FERT impact matrix, and I was like, is that a clustering strategy? When you put those on that matrix, is that a type of clustering?
No, that's
that not really?
That's an assessment strategy. It's a little
Okay.
bit different because you have a spectrum on
Mhm.
different axes and criteria, and you would score on this criteria. So it's a little bit
Mhm.
different
Okay.
than clustering.
Yeah. Okay.
Clustering is you put
Right.
them
Right.
in 10, 15, 20 buckets, and you put a name on these buckets.
It's kind of like where that idea came from and what it really means, or and it's I mean, like, how, if I wanted to cluster them by the probability that we're going to ever do that, that wouldn't be a good clustering strategy. But
that would be a way to, that's something you would do after, more in the convergent part. It's not about it's not about sense making, even if it's a little bit, but it would be a way to assess the impact and the priority you should give to each one of the clusters. Ideas, sorry. Clustering is a way to regroup ideas that are similar. Okay.
Yeah.
So you could use assess and impact, and then all the ideas that are in the top left quadrant are in the same bucket. Okay, and it could be a decent. I mean, there is no strict rule as long as it serves your purpose of discussing the way to solve your big topic, your focus question. It's a good clustering strategy. Okay, so but with a matrix, usually you have 4 zones or 6 zones or 8 zones maximum. So the clustering is a bit, if you have 200 ideas, it's not going to help you a lot.
Yep.
Because for any brainstorming, even if it's in a small group, Alison, a real brainstorming where you chain several divergent steps, you can end up with 300 ideas, even with a group of 5 persons. So you still need a very good clustering strategy to be able to extract something out of these ideas.
Do people ever create the buckets first?
Yes. Yes, and I'm guilty to do it a lot. Because it makes it a lot easier and faster to have people generate ideas directly into the bucket, but it has a different goal. So it's a different exercise. It's a great way to force people to generate plenty of ideas in different perspectives. So for divergence, it's great. And by the way, picking the right clusters to force people to think in different perspectives is also something strategic. But
might you do that at different times? Like, now we're going to think of ideas that are, and this is now, or would you do them all at the same time and have them put them in the different areas?
My answer is going to be it depends on plenty of stuff, of your objectives, the time you have, the number of persons you have. it's a technique that I use with my large groups a lot. When I have 300 people in the same room, I know that especially if they are from the same company, they're going to have the same ideas, right? Because same culture, same background, etc. So I create clusters that make them think through different perspectives. And I say, okay, on my left, you're going to focus on that cluster, on that perspective, here on this one, here on this one, here on this one. So I create subgroups within my big room so that I'm sure that I'm not going to end up with thousands of ideas, but in fact, only 20 of them are going to be different.
And one little thing you asked about feedback, just in case you forgot to do this, warning your assistant what it looks like when the process is done for clustering, that all the things will be still and they will stop moving because your assistant didn't know when things were done and thought that was done earlier. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not sure to understand.
Mike was timing and he
Yeah.
thought it's done, but he didn't know there's actually a whole other sorting. The movement has to stop completely. And so if you warn that person, it has to stop completely. That would help if you ever do this again. That was just my little.
Wait, the screen was moving, and
yes,
until it's moving, it means it's not finished.
Yeah, you might have stopped the timer and it wasn't, bent.
Well, it was not very important. I just wanted to say that it was.
I know.
I mean, if it was 30 seconds or 1 minute, it still would be way
super
less
fast
than the 3 hours that
I know.
a group of
It must
participants.
be absolutely perfectly timed, according to me.
Okay, all right. Sharon, anything to add?
I think that I don't know if I just missed it at the beginning, but I didn't know how many case studies you were going to go through. And so at first, when you did the first example, I thought that that was the only example you were going to share, which I probably just wasn't paying close enough attention. But I think sometimes it helps my brain to know, like, this is the first of 4 that I'm going to show you. And then this is the second of 4.
So I didn't repeat, but at the beginning, I said that I was going to show 4, and at the beginning of the section, I also talk about the 4, but I could absolutely say case study 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, so that it created a kind of progress bar. Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's definitely nitpicky. So
no
and
problem.
for distracted participants.
Next time, don't be distracted.
I know. I just got home from traveling and my cat is obsessively trying to get me to play with her. So I keep being distracted by her.
Okay. One last question, Talia. Angela, you need to go.
Oh, Angela. Oh, just this is very nitpicky too. I was on your website today, the Tinkers, Club. The hamburger menu is so there's not enough contrast between it and the background color. It's like almost very similar purples. And I had to brighten my screen up a lot to see it. But then I noticed also today in your little OBS screen, there's like an area where you have a slightly, a purple text, it's like the second, maybe it's like H2 or your second header. Yeah. It's a little bit low contrast in terms of accessibility if you want to take a look at that. That's a nitpicky thing.
No, that's not nitpicky because I noticed it myself and it's on my to-do because as I said, I've just I said to Mike, I don't know if you were there, it's a new tool that I'm using for my slide. I started using it this afternoon, 3 hours before.
Right. Using what did you use? Markup? You use markup for it?
No, it's a developer tool that is called SlideDev. So in fact, I can do all my slide in Markdown and do the CSS.
Yeah, I said markup. Markdown is what I meant.
It's based on Markdown, but also CSS, like a website. So it's good for developers, and it's also great because you can directly output the slides from ChatGPT if you want, or do stuff like that. And for the hamburger, that's because of that's not me, that's Circle. It's only on the mobile, on the small width, and there is no way to select the color of the hamburger.
That's too
So
bad.
yeah, yeah. But thank you for reminding me of that. All right. Well, thank you a lot for staying with me so late, and I really hope you enjoyed. And I'm going to post the recording less 10 minutes because I forgot to hit the record button at the beginning. Ah, you're
This
still
is
here.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your
I learned
day
so
or your
much. Thank
evening.
you.
Bye-bye.